The main topic for tonight will be then Bodhicitta, so conventional and ultimate Bodhicitta, or relative Bodhicitta and ultimate Bodhicitta. And we are back in the core, let's say, of the Dharma teaching and the core of the Mahayana teachings, with the immediate focus on bodhicitta, on the main motivation which should sustain, support our practice. Once we have engaged into the Dharma and we have accepted the teaching of the Buddha, we have meditated on the suffering of the cyclic existence, on the strength and the power of the causality being the law of karma, fueled by our thoughts, fueled by our emotions, and first of all, fueled by our ignorance. We have understood the importance and the emergency somehow to walk the path towards liberation as a first step to free ourselves from the suffering of samsara, and to continue towards complete enlightenment, which is without any doubt the state from which we can be helpful for as many sentient beings as possible. Why so? Why to aim at helping all sentient beings? Simply because the suffering we can observe and recognize within our own existence is as well existing in the life of the other sentient beings. Other sentient beings have created as well causes and conditions to suffer, to experience the suffering of samsara. We have a precious human rebirth, in the sense that not only we are a human being, but we have also accumulated the causes to have met Dharma and to be able to practice it, to receive the instructions and to apply them. This allows us to walk towards enlightenment. Whereas so many sentient beings do not have this opportunity. So many beings at large do not have this opportunity because of ignorance, because of the causes they have accumulated. Since the time our consciousness exists, beginning less time, as it is stated in the text, we have filled up entire cemeteries in this world and in the other realm of rebirths. Along all these rebirths, we have been for each other related, closely related. Mother, father, wife, husband, sister, brothers. We have been closely related. We have lived because of the kindness of each other. We have been saved, we have been rescued, we have rescued each other since beginningless time. So now that we have found the way, we have found the path, it is like common sense. And it becomes like a duty to help as well all the other sentient beings, to help them to recognize the root of suffering, to help them to understand that if there is suffering, there is also cessation of suffering, because there is an origin, and whatever begins as an end, whatever has a cause, ends at one point. So we need to engage in whatever practices necessary to increase our potential to help as many beings as possible. It passes by our own realizations. It passes by our own wisdom, because without wisdom, it is very difficult to advise others properly, to advise the others according to what they need in order to make some step towards liberation and enlightenment. So at one point of our path, we make an oath, we make a promise, and we are taking vows, which we call the Bodhisattva vows. Through this engagement, we are dedicating our entire existence for the others, for the sake of the others, for the progress of the others, for the liberation of the others. And that is very important. This engagement is the cornerstone of our practice. Of course, it is possible to reach liberation without bodhicitta. It is possible to get free from suffering of samsara without bodhicitta. This has been taught also by the Buddha. This is a way. This is also a valid way. Yet, it is not fulfilling our goal in the Mahayana path. Because those who have reached liberation through the Theravada way, the Hinayana way of Dharma, are able to achieve selflessness in order to reach emptiness, but they are not enrooting completely self-cherishing. Their motivation is still tainted by self-cherishing. That is the reason why they enter into emptiness, they enter into non-duality, and they stay in it. They have no reason to come out of it. They have no wish to come out of it. At the moment they enter into the realization of emptiness, there is no reason which have been placed into their mind to come out of it. Thus, they will remain in emptiness meditation for eons and eons. Incredible amount of time. It is said that one day they will realize it is not the end of the path, and they will come out of their meditation on emptiness, and at that time they will need to find a Mahayana teacher in order to continue their progress. But meanwhile, they could have been so helpful for many beings. That's why the practitioner of the Mahayana path from the beginning are meditating on compassion, are meditating on bodhicitta, meditating on this wish to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, in order to ascertain this motivation, to make it clear. And to realize it along the way, to realize in the sense of really mixing their motivation with their consciousness. Mixing their motivation in an inseparable way, so that their whole practice becomes for the sake of all sentient beings. We say it is like pouring water in milk, so that one cannot be separated from the other. This is what we would call the conventional bodhicitta. Conventional bodhicitta because it is functioning as the main motivation within this conventional reality. This is what will fuel our actions in this conventional reality. Out of compassion, out of this wish to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, we will progress on the path, and we will do so accumulating the two main causes for enlightenment. One being the accumulation of merits, which is a direct result of bodhicitta, the direct result of all the means we will generate to help the others. And the accumulation of wisdom, the deepening of our understanding and then realization of emptiness. It is only once we will have accumulated, fulfilled the accumulation of both merits and wisdom, that we will achieve enlightenment, complete enlightenment. Not just liberation, which sometimes can be mixed with an enlightenment, but it is not. The complete enlightenment is further than liberation from samsara. And that path between liberation from samsara and full enlightenment can be walked only by the bodhisattva. Can be walked only by the one who has actualized bodhicitta as his main motivation. A bodhisattva within this conventional reality breathe for the sake of the others, eat for the sake of the others. His main motivation to sustain himself and to walk on this world is for the sake of the others. He will then develop what we call the skillful means, through which he will be able to touch as many beings as possible through various means, being anyway possible to touch the others. Through the teaching, of course, but it could be through art, through poetry, through any possible way, which at one point will draw beings towards ending their suffering, engaging into the spiritual path, which is the key towards liberation. So the conventional, when we refer to the conventional bodhicitta, it is the actual motivation to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. It is what we call the awakening mind, or the mind striving to reach enlightenment for the sake of the others. Whereas the ultimate bodhicitta is the realization of the true nature of all phenomena by a mind having realized bodhicitta. So somehow we can say that the type of emptiness which is realized by an Arhat or an Arya Bodhisattva, though the same in nature, has a different taste because it aims at a different goal. The Bodhisattva realized emptiness out of his wish to help all sentient beings. The consciousness which will contemplate the true nature of phenomena directly contains bodhicitta, is all pervaded by bodhicitta. Thus, the way that the bodhisattva would remain for aeons and aeons into the direct perception of emptiness, because the bodhisattva knows he has some work to do, he has some people to help, he has some task to fulfill in order to help as many beings as possible. This is his goal. The realization of emptiness is enabling him to see things more clearly, more purely, wisely. And not only the bodhisattva will realize the selflessness, but because of his engagement for the sake of the others, he will also progressively unroot completely any sense of self-cherishment. Deepening his meditation, even after having reached liberation, the Bodhisattva will continue to accumulate more merits and will deepen his meditation on emptiness, accumulating this way more wisdom till he can really cut through the last veil of ignorance and complete the path, reaching full enlightenment. So these are actually conventional and ultimate bodhicitta. After how to reach and how to develop bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, this we have many teachings about. We have received already many teachings about through the explanation of the Bodhisattva Karyavatara, through the training of the mind, helping us to tame the mind, to tame the thoughts, to tame our disturbed emotions. An incredibly powerful practice also is the practice of Tonglen, and the practice of taking and giving, because it brings us, every time we perform this practice, to consider more important to free the other beings from their suffering, whatever it will cost us, whatever it would cost us. So to make a step towards, I consider the others as more important than me. I am a tool for their happiness. I am a messenger bringing the Dharma, bringing the right means for their happiness. So I make myself ready to take upon me their suffering, their delusion, all the negative consequences of their past actions. And while I'm taking it within myself, I do transform it, I do purify it. And in return, I send them all positive energy so that they can reach enlightenment as swiftly as possible. The practice of Tonglen is the training for the mind of a bodhisattva, is what enables us to check how far we are willing to go, ready to go. It is a very powerful practice in which we could engage ourselves at any time, every day, for a few minutes, as much as time we have. Along the way, we learn also how to integrate any kind of unpleasant situation as part of our path. Whatever can happen to us which is not pleasant, somehow we could say either we fight it, either we accept it. Either we experience it as a suffering, as a disturbance, or as a means to progress spiritually. When everything is fine and people are praising us, are telling only good things about us, in one way it is pleasant, and because it is pleasant, it is more supporting our own disturbance, our own pride, our own ego, our own self-cherishing thoughts. Whereas when we are facing adversity, when we are facing difficulties, we are working on our mind, we are working on our ego. We are trying to find out what does feel hurt within ourselves, which part of me feel uncomfortable, which part of me feel threatened, which part of me fears what will happen. And this is, of course, of great help for our spiritual progress. It is of great help for our inner development. It helps us much more than praises, without any doubt. Well, that doesn't mean that we have to wish for complication, pain, sufferings. This is not the point. We are not masochists. Yeah? But in the past, we have accumulated a certain amount of negative causes. We have acted in an incorrect way and accumulating negativities. And these negativities, by the law of causality, is appearing in our life, is taking place in front of us. So we have the choice. Either we suffer out of what unpleasant situation we are facing, or we learn to integrate them in our practice and use them so that we can progress further, spiritually speaking. Whatever negative circumstance, whatever pain, whatever suffering, whatever criticism, blame, gossip, slander we can face, it can be part of our spiritual path. It can be integrated within our spiritual progress. It should be. Instead of becoming an obstacle for our spiritual path, it becomes a friend on our spiritual path. So here we have a choice to make at time, either to be disturbed by, annoyed, or to use it to observe the mind, observe the way we think, the way we fear, the way we expect, project, fight. And if we are able to integrate adversity within our spiritual path, what we are doing is accumulating wisdom. We start actually to accumulate some wisdom. And all this, along with Bodhicitta, will help us to reach this ultimate Bodhicitta. The correct understanding of the law of causality helps us to contemplate the true nature of phenomena. Are phenomena existing from their own side? Whatever I experience, does it exist from its own side? Has it been created by somebody? Or is it the result of my own creation? The result of causes I have accumulated in the past? Well, we know the answer. This is in the teachings. By the compassion of our teachers, of our masters, we have learned about the true nature of phenomena. We have learned that every phenomena we do observe is of the same nature as my own mind. There is ultimately no duality. There is ultimately no differences between the creator of any phenomena and the object created. There is no difference between the observer and what is observed. We have, of course, the tendency to believe, because of all the past influences, that everything we observe, everything we see, everything we touch or smell is existing outside of us, like a phenomena independent from myself. Like I would walk in a world with which I am only connected because I see it, but which pre-exists and exists after me. We can always remember how we feel and how we are experiencing our dream reality. Within our dreams, we have the same feelings as right now. We see phenomena which we think to be outside of us. We perceive with our six senses this external reality, and our thoughts are the result of our fears or pleasure within the dreams. But when we are waking up in the morning, we know that whatever we have experienced was 100% out of my mind, out of our mind. That cup, that table, that object, that situation which I experienced as very real, and which I thought at the time to be an external phenomenon, was a complete projection of my own mind. A little bit like if my mind is projecting a movie in front of me. So when we wake up, we can contemplate at our dreams and understand their lack of inherent existence. What we lack in this reality is the possibility to wake up and to understand that it is the same here. In this reality, I believe things to exist from their own side, whereas they are the projection of my own mind. They are the reflection of my own mind. Like the moon reflecting in the piece of water, it is not the moon, it is just its reflection. In the same way, whatever we perceive is a reflection of our own mind. It does not exist from its own side. It exists because we have created the causes for that. And this way of thinking is extremely precious in everyday life. Whatever we are facing, whatever we are observing, however a situation can appear unpleasant, we can immediately reflect on it, meditate on it, and understand. That understanding is pacifying the mind immediately. That understanding is avoiding generating strong, disturbing emotions, which themselves are creating further causes that I will have to experience in the future. What do I want? I wish to experience further suffering? Probably not. So if I don't want to experience further suffering, I should avoid creating causes for that. I should avoid creating causes for further suffering. This is logical. Despite its logic, we are forgetting about it on a daily basis. And we are engaging again and again in situations, in emotions, which are creating further causes for further suffering and unpleasant situations. How foolish is our mind? So we need to come out of this foolishness by meditating on the true nature of phenomena, by realizing the true nature of all phenomena. Not being fooled again and again by whatever information we are entering in contact with. To keep our minds calm, peaceful, and fully dedicated for the well-being of other sentient beings. When we consider generating bodhicitta, we find out, of course, that we have those we are calling enemies, towards whom we generate negative feelings, and this is a disturbance. It is a disturbance because if I wish to help all sentient beings, what about them? They are harming me. They are acting in a way which my mind doesn't like. And I end up to call them enemies. This is one of the first thing I need to work on. To consider all sentient beings in an equal manner. There is no enemy. There is no friends or strangers. They are consciousnesses. They have been all my mothers in the past. They have helped me a lot. And in this life, however they are acting towards me, I can generate the proper motivation to help them. Why did I call them enemy? Because they were acting in a mean way. Why did they act in a mean way? First, because I have created causes for. Second, because they are deluded. They are in ignorance. They are in trouble. They are accumulating causes for further suffering. Do I wish them to have further suffering? No, definitely not. That would not fit with my engagement on the path of Bodhisattva. I cannot wish any being to experience suffering. So I should not consider any beings as my enemies. They are not enemies. They are in ignorance. They are acting out of ignorance, as I do, as I did, as I would continue to do if Dharma was not there to help me. But they might not have Dharma in their life, or they might not understand Dharma properly, thus acting in a negative way. However they are acting, I must integrate them in my field of compassion. I must keep them in my field of compassion. For those who have taken the Bodhisattva vows, it is one of our vows. We should not remove one single being from our field of bodhicitta. Ever. And if it happens, immediately we need to meditate, we need to purify that negativity, and we need to consider them again in the same way as we consider our friends or strangers. This is also something we can work on an everyday basis. Anytime we would consider somebody as mean or bad, let's requalify that perception. Let's requalify that way to perceive them. If a child is acting in a negative way or in a way against us or saying things which are not nice to us, do we get angry against? Well, we should not. We should not. We should understand that that it's a child, that he is or she is deluded, that she is not mature enough to understand all the aspects of the situation. So are most of the adults. So we should treat them in the same way. We should express our compassion towards all of them in an equal way. This is equanimity, the mind of equanimity. Not easy, but very important. Very important because it is a cornerstone for generating bodhicitta. If we do not consider all sentient beings in an equal way, we cannot generate bodhicitta. Bodhicitta does not know enemies or friends. Bodhicitta is helping all sentient beings in all the possible ways, adapted to each of them, according to each of them possibility and past accumulated causes. Anyhow, whatever we are experiencing, whatever we do see or experience in any way, is void of any self-inherent existence. It is the result of past accumulated causes. Why to be angry? Because I see this person telling me this or doing this against who I consider to be me, I. If I do so, I do not apply the Dharma I have learned. Because what I have learned is that everything I perceive is the result of past accumulated causes. I have created what I experience. I have created what I perceive. If on the top of the unpleasantness of a situation, I do generate a negative thought or negative emotion, I miss the point. I continue to create the causes for suffering. That's not what I want. What I want is to reach enlightenment as swiftly as possible, so to be able to help as many beings as possible. And this passes by realizing bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta, as the core motivation for my practice, for my life, for every second of my existence, and to realize the true nature of all phenomena on the top of this bodhicitta, which becomes ultimate bodhicitta. On the basis of the correct motivation to help all sentient beings, I realize the non-inherent existence of all phenomena. Keeping my motivation, but perceiving things differently, more deeply, more wisely. And from the moment I will have a direct perception of emptiness, a direct perception of the true nature of all phenomena, along with bodhicitta, I become an Arya Bodhisattva. And from the first moment of that achievement, I will have to walk through the 10 bhumis, the 10 bodhisattva ground, towards complete enlightenment. So we should not consider all this practice, all this engagement, all these engagements as complicated, far, distant. They have their roots in our everyday life. They have their root right now. The practice I engage myself into, the way I think, the way I project upon the others, the way I consider every situation, is part of my practice, is part of the practice, is part of the path. Understanding relative and ultimate bodhicitta correctly transforms radically our existence. Nothing will be the same ever, because our perspective is different. The mind is more calm, sharper, strongly motivated for the sake of all the others, strongly motivated to engage in whatever practices to reach enlightenment as quickly as possible. It's not a path without effort, but it's a path without any doubt worth the efforts. At first, during our first steps on the path, it is a little bit selfish, of course, still, because we can see that we can that way put an end to all our sufferings. But very quickly, engaging onto the Mahayana path, we can see that there are so many beings in suffering, so many beings in ignorance, not just human beings. As we know, there are 6 realm of rebirths. So all the other beings need help. Need the help of those who have understood what the path is. This is a responsibility. If I don't reach enlightenment, who else will? I don't know. I don't know what the others are doing. How do they practice? How do they not practice? But I know what I could do. I know what I can do. And I should do. And I should strive. I should place every second of my existence into realizing bodhicitta. Conventional, relative bodhicitta, and emptiness. All right. I think that's it for tonight. I have turned around briefly. We can talk much longer. But instead of talking longer about this topic, I can only but encourage you to practice it. Transform every single moment of your daily life, especially the hard ones, especially the difficult one, especially when you are very afraid or very angry. Transform, transform, transform. Bring every difficult situation into the path. Then it becomes beneficial for you. Then it is not a lost opportunity. Then it is not a soul disturbing situation after all, because you understand its benefit. It transforms everything. And once again, the teaching becomes a good teaching only once we really apply it in our daily life. So whatever you have understood, however you have understood it tonight, try to apply it in everyday situations. I wish you a good evening. Good practice.